Hey Ted, what do you think makes for a great dungeon master?
Mats.
Oh, you mean like, mats to roll your dice in, or battle map style mats?
No, being like Matt Colville or Matt Mercer.
Alright, well that's a good point, but I don't think you can just choose to be a mat. Maybe we should talk about things that you can learn from one of the mats.
Alright, well, let's talk about using action-oriented monsters from Matt Colville.
Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time visiting Ted's basement. It's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tune to that notification bell.
Alright, before we get into the Matt Colville video, which is essentially a video response to, I want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Nord Game. You know, the holidays are coming, Black Friday's coming, and there are going to be sales going on, and Nord has been kind enough to give us a promo code to use, Nerdarchy, for a whopping 20% off everything in your cart. The link will be in the description below, as well as that promo code. But maybe you're not familiar with Nord Games. Nord Games is a fantastic third-party publisher. They do tons of different kinds of decks, encounters, treasures. There's tons of stuff over there that we use. They've put out plenty of books. One of their recent Kickstarters was Traps and Treacheries, which I'm super excited for. It's got puzzles, it's got riddles, and of course, well, traps right in the name.
So I'm excited for that book, but I mean, going back, I used Revenge of the Horde. I ran a campaign with some monstrous humanoids, and that book was a go-to resource for me.
And there is so many more things that you can grab from their dungeon mastery toolbox over there and add right into your game. Whether you're looking for new monsters, NPCs, things for your setting, they've got you covered. Go check out the link. Use that promo code. With that, let's jump into the video.
So, Matt Colville, author and renowned dungeon master, he's got his series of running the game. And, I think it was number 84 was action-oriented monsters. I actually stumbled onto that video by accident, and it really inspired me. And, we don't do a lot of video responses, but I felt this one really, drew me in enough to say, we really got to talk about it.
So the central focus of that video was basically villainous actions. And it's the idea that you're going to use a monster that's going to be either a boss monster or use a solo monster, giving it other new actions. Some of them are similar to legendary actions, but they can also work in conjunction with legendary actions as well.
Right. So I looked at this video and I was, blown away, because the idea is, he runs games kind of just like we do, where we don't have that 3 or 4 party members. We got bulk, 6, 7 players at the table on average. And it's sometimes hard to present a monster that is challenging. He makes the point that you could up the challenge rating, but those encounters wind up being very swingy. The players start missing and you're hitting, you can drop the party and TPK, or, you just give it more hit points and it's like, okay, well, we're just beating on this thing. And it's not a very thrilling encounter. But if you make these action-oriented monsters, you can have an encounter that becomes memorable. And that was the target. That was the central focus as I saw it from watching that video.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it really kind of speaks to our play style. And we even have a series called Fast and Dirty Monsters. It's very similar, where we take monsters that are already existing and turn them into new monsters. Well, in this case, he's kind of doing the same thing, and he's giving the players presenting the monster that the players would expect, and then it has new abilities. So villainous actions, what he basically does is he makes sure they have a bonus action that they can use most of the time, a reaction that they have available, or multiple reactions they have available, and then a sequential, for lack of a better term, legendary action, right, that they get to use. Like round 1, this happens, round 2, this happens, round 3, that happens. The reason for it is narrative. The idea that you're building up this narrative throughout the combat, and that instead of just using like a menu like legendary actions are, which is fine and works perfectly well, he took a different approach, and that was to be like, okay, we're kind of going to tell a little bit of a story throughout the combat with these villainous actions that the monster can do.
So when building these kinds of things, he felt it was very appropriate to be like, okay, well, what is this monster? What does it represent? So he used in his video a goblin boss and an ankeg. And you know, each time before he got started, he asked, you know, what is this monster? What does it represent? And I thought that, you know, that is a really good place to build. So then, you know, as the encounter goes on, you've got these things that can be done that are outside of its typical turn. He's still going to get all of his actions, still going to get the, you know, the bonus actions, reactions, but his villain action allows it to do more. In the case with the goblin boss, he's issuing commands. So he's doing the boss role. And I thought, like, the way that's going to come across is really cool and is going to be super memorable. Like, watching the video, like, it makes me want to run those monsters specifically, you know, fully written as he did. He doesn't get into the number crunching at all because too many people argue about the numbers, but just the design of the entire encounter, like I said, it just was awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, it was definitely design and theory craft, and he brings up good points. And you should definitely go over and watch that video. We'll put a link in the description down below so you can go check it out. And you know, and I really liked the narrative that he was building with those villainous actions, with the, especially like with the goblin and the Ankeg, with the idea that, okay, you know, in round one it's really just the setup, and it's kind of letting the players know that something different is going on here. But not only that, the monster has some kind of advantage, right? Or giving their allies some kind of advantage. Then round two, what happens is like that's going to be something that's a little bit more impactful and let the players know, well, you know what, you're kind of in danger here. And then round three is kind of the culmination. This is the end of the battle. The monster is going to be basically dying this round or next round, and they're going to do one last cool thing before that happens.
And the thing that I liked is, you know, there was a little bit of ebb and flow, you know, with the things that was in there. So like, you know, the one villainous action allowed the goblins to get into position. They basically get a move. And depending upon how the battle is going up at that point in time, you know, you as the DM, he's giving you, you know, complete control to say, does it provoke attacks of opportunity or does it not? You know, the second round is kind of more of the same, you know, as like, oh, that guy's a problem, target him, you know, focus fire. So when that person gets surrounded, you know, if you've got a lot of goblins and the party isn't really dropping them, well, maybe that's the opportunity to say, yeah, that it is going to draw attacks of opportunity, whereas last round it didn't. Or, you know, oh, there's only 3 goblins left. Well, you definitely want to get, you know, that in there. So I thought it was a lot of fun, and it gave a lot of, you know, situational control to the GM at those moments. And the way he delivered it, it was instructional, whether it was attempted to or not, to be say like, pay attention to these things and make that judgment call at that moment.
There's that, and the fact that the way he lays it out is also very simplistic, right? It's designed to make it easy. And the thing that happens often, you know, I'm running my own games, is I'll forget to do a legendary action, I'll forget to do a lair action, but just because there's so much going on the battlefield. And one of the things that Matt is trying to do is remove those obstacles to make it very sequential and make it very easy for a GM to just remember and do it on the fly. And so that in itself is just a very helpful tip as well. And it's like, because the way it happens, more than likely you're going to do that after the first player goes.
You've got the flow pattern built in, and you know, you could do it either, you know, after the first player goes, or literally like, okay, the say for instance the goblin boss, it does all of its regular stuff and then it takes its villainous action to, okay, you know, it's my turn, I'm going to issue this command, and it happens. And it'll really, like, the first time you do something like this, the players are going to be thrown for a loop because it breaks what they're used to. They're going to see things that they're not akin to, and it's not something that's in the players, or it's not in the monster manual. So they're going to be like, what is this? And they're going to pay more attention. It's going to draw them into the encounter. And as I said, it's going to be memorable.
Yeah, you know, hopefully it will increase immersion, right? Because something different just happened, things have changed. Where with your standard legendary action, it's just like something happens. Like, oh, the dragon just made a claw attack or tail attack or something along that nature. While those actions can be effective, they're not always very climatic.
So, however you want to apply these kinds of things, like, the key point is when you're designing these types of encounters, you want to make something that is designed to be memorable and more challenging. So his concept is the thing's gonna have a higher AC, the thing's gonna have more hit points. Therefore, it is more of a challenge overall, but then it has to have a bonus action, it has to have a reaction, and it has to have sequential differing villainous actions that you can be able to use. And you don't want all of your battles to be this way. If you've got a table that has more than the average number of players, these are things that are going to make that encounter stand out. It's going to be memorable, and they're going to be talking about it. So, like, I'm already beginning to decide, all right, the future encounters that I have, I've got sessions that I'm working, that I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be using these things so that it's going to stand out and my players are going to be like, well, what was that? So I'm excited for this whole, new concept of the encounter.
Yeah, he does a really good job, and it does several things. Just for one, it just makes better solo monsters and boss monsters. Making sure that they have bonus actions and reactions is definitely a good idea. We've always kind of tried to incorporate at least the reaction part into a lot of our special NPC design. And another good point that he talks about and makes is the fact that the reason why he did it was because he had an enemy adventuring party essentially that he wanted to use or did use, and he didn't want to build 11th level PCs and then use them as villains or bad guys or enemies, whatever you want to call them, right? And that's actually good. That kind of speaks to our beliefs when it comes to encounter and monster design. It's been a long time since I've ever statted an NPC like a player character and did a full character sheet. I know, like, some players and dungeon masters insist on doing it this way. I think it's a waste of time, and you're doing a bunch of extra work that is never going to come up in play. The players are never going to see all their skills and all these abilities that just aren't going to get used. Monster stats and player stats look similar, is one of the points that Matt brings up, but they're not. They function very differently, and they should. They should operate under different rules because they're designed for different things.
Yeah, specifically calls out the Guardian Dog has got 15 spells with, a varied number of castings, and he's like, that's too much work. Why can't I have a monster that has a first level spell that I can cast every round? Why do I have a number of spell slots? I am not a PC. I'm not going to play this character, 20, hours over the course of 10 combats. That doesn't make sense. Design monsters with abilities so that you can use it, give it a recharge or not, have fun with it, make it make sense for a stat block, not a character sheet.
Yeah, in that particular instance, it brings up the point that, you have all these great options, but the problem is who's got them all memorized. Sure, I know some of you do, but not everybody does. And the benefit is if you're a person that can memorize all that and you just know them all, that's great. Go ahead, knock your socks off. But for other DMs out there, you don't actually have to do that. You can cheat and just come up with the ones that you need and you're going to use, instead of having to worry about looking up things in the middle of a combat, because one, nothing will break immersion faster than people flipping through books to figure out how something works, and it also just slows down the game.
If you got 15 spells and you don't know, like, okay, maybe all right, well, you've got Cone of Cold, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, and a couple other attack spells. You want to use one of those, and you might know what some of them do, but you have to check the others. If you take the time to look those up, you are slowing down the game. And as Dave says, it's going to break immersion the second that you pull out a book and you're reading something, not engaging the players sitting there at the table. Even if, you're using, an online database and you hover over something, you still need to sit and read what's there. Nothing is actually going on at the table. And now the players begin to drift or a side conversation happens.
Sometimes there's just a fallacy that something is innately better because it's more complicated. Sometimes the simplest method is the best method.
That's true.
But we'll probably be using more villainous actions in our games. I like the fact that you're tailoring them per encounter. It seems like it would be a lot of fun. I think the players would get a lot out of it. The question is, are you using them in your game? Let us know. Have you watched the video? What did you think? We thought it was awesome. With that, just head down to the description. Check out that promo code as well as the original video. And before we leave, I want to take a moment to invite you to join Nerdarchy, the adventuring party over on Patreon. What can they expect over there, Ted?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that both players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
But that's not all. Every month we do giveaways, and our patrons are automatically entered.
We do weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
So quest on down to the description. Join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party. Until next time.
Stay nerdy.